What would you do if you watched someone get hurt, day after day, and every time you tried to stop it, the world told you it was none of your business? What if speaking up could cost you everything? Your job, your visa, your right to stay in the country you traveled thousands of miles to reach? And what if, on the day you finally stopped calculating and just acted, in 3 steps, with an open hand, you changed the course of 4 lives, including your own? This is the story of a woman who came to a foreign city with 1 suitcase, a work visa, and a grandmother's voice in her head. She didn't come to be a hero. She came to do a job. But somewhere between braiding hair and making rice on Tuesdays, she became something the people in that penthouse hadn't seen in years. Someone who refused to look away. A penthouse. 43rd floor. So, a maid is standing over a woman on the floor. Gray dress. White apron. Her right hand is still clenched from the hit she just threw. She is breathing hard. She is terrified, not of the woman on the floor, but of herself. Of what she just did. Of the line she crossed that doesn't have a crossing back. The woman on the floor is beautiful in the way that costs money. Her hand is pressed to her cheek. Her eyes are wide, not with pain, with outrage. Because the maid just put a hand on her. Behind the maid, a wheelchair. In it, a 71-year-old woman. Her glasses are on the floor. Her left cheek is red, a handprint, fresh. Not from the maid. From someone else. The door opens. A man walks in. Tall suited. He sees his fiancée on the floor. His maid standing over her. His mother in the wheelchair with a handprint on her face. 3 people. 3 stories. 10 seconds to decide which one is true. For months ago, a woman named Ruth arrived at this penthouse with 1 suitcase, a work visa, and the memory of her grandmother saying, "You have strong hands, use them to hold people up." Today she stopped holding back. And nothing in this penthouse will ever be the same. 4 months earlier, Ruth is standing at the service entrance. 27 years old. Nigerian. Wearing the only formal outfit she owns, a navy blouse she ironed on the floor of her guesthouse room because there was no ironing board. When the elevator opens, she sees more marble than she's seen in her life. White floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A chandelier that probably has a name. The housekeeper, Mrs. Park, 58, efficient, not warm, leads her to the east corridor. She says, "Madam Kong." Wheelchair. Paralyzed from the waist down. Car accident, 3 years ago. She was a professor. She's sharp. She'll test you. Ruth says, "My grandmother tested me for 22 years. I'm used to it." The room is bright. A hospital bed disguised as a regular one. A bookshelf covering one entire wall. And in the center, a wheelchair. Kang Yunji. 71. Thin. White hair cropped short. Sharp dark eyes behind round glasses that sit slightly crooked on her nose. A face that was once commanding and is now compressed. Like a voice that was told to whisper for 3 years and eventually forgot it was whispering. She looks at Ruth. "You're Nigerian." "Which state?" "Lagos." Before that, Ajigunle. "Imo State." "Oh. I read Chinua Achebe." Things fall apart. "Did you like it?" Ruth doesn't hesitate. "I think Okonkwo was a fool. But a brave one." Yunji's eyebrow rises. "Most people say it's a masterpiece and leave it there." Ruth says, "Most people haven't met foolish, brave men. I grew up surrounded by them." Something happens on Yunji's face. Not a smile, not quite enough room for that yet. But the possibility of one. She says, "You'll do." Ruth starts that afternoon. Now, here's something you need to understand about Ruth before we go any further. She didn't take this job for the money. She took it because she knows what it means to care for someone the world stopped seeing. Her grandmother had polio. Ruth has been lifting women who can't walk since she was 6 years old. Bathing. Dressing. Feeding. Braiding hair. Pushing wheelchairs to church. When her grandmother died, Ruth was 22, the last words she heard were, "You have strong hands. Use them to hold people up." That's the whole origin story. Not ambition. Not strategy. Just a granddaughter who learned early that some people need someone to show up, and that showing up is its own kind of calling. Within a week, Ruth and Yunji find their rhythm. Korean poetry in the morning. Yoonji reads aloud, and when she does, her voice becomes the professor's voice again. It's remarkable actually. Like a key turning in a lock. In the afternoon, Ruth reads Chimamanda Adichie, and Yoonji argues with every single sentence. They fight about literature the way two women fight who have been waiting their entire lives for someone worth arguing with. She writes like she's arguing with the reader, Yoonji says about Adichie. That's because she is, Ruth says, arguing about who gets to tell the story. Yoonji opens her eyes and looks at Ruth, not employer to employee, reader to reader. The hair braiding starts in week 2. Ruth is combing Yoonji's hair, thin, white, tangled, when she says, almost to herself, I could braid this. Small braids close to the scalp. My grandmother said braids made her feel like a queen. Yoonji says, I'm 71. Ruth says, my grandmother was 83. Silence. Do it. Ruth braids. Small cornrows. An hour of patient, careful work. When she holds up the mirror, Yoonji touches her hair like she's reading Braille. She says, I look like a queen. Ruth says, I was going to say ridiculous. Those aren't mutually exclusive. And Yoonji laughs. Full and real. The sound fills the room like something that had been locked in a closet and finally broke the door down. From the hallway, Ruth hears footsteps. Someone listening. Then walking away. The jollof rice starts the following Tuesday. Ruth cooks in the penthouse kitchen after the chef leaves. Onions, tomatoes, peppers, scotch bonnets. She brings a bowl to Yoonji. What is this? Jollof rice. It's orange. It's supposed to be. It smells like it's arguing with me. Ruth says, in Nigeria, polite food is bad food. Yoonji eats the entire bowl. First full meal in months. She says one word, Tuesdays. Just that. Tuesdays. And from that moment on, every Tuesday is jollof rice day. And in the small space between a Nigerian woman cooking and a Korean professor eating, something is being built that has nothing to do with food. There's another woman in this story. And you need to pay attention here. Yoon Sarah arrives at the penthouse every day at 11:30. Stunning. She runs a lifestyle brand. The kind of social media presence that makes everything look effortless and aspirational. She brings flowers, smiles wide, posts photos with Yoonji. My beautiful mother-in-law. My inspiration. Ruth watches. And Ruth notices something. Real warmth is messy. It stumbles. It laughs at the wrong time. It shows up in inconvenient moments. Sarah's warmth is choreographed. Every gesture landing exactly where it's supposed to. Every smile arriving on cue. Ruth's grandmother used to say, when someone is too careful with their kindness, they're hiding the opposite. Day 9. Ruth comes back with afternoon tea. The door is slightly open. She hears Sarah's voice, low, a whisper. You know he'll put you in a home eventually. When the wedding is done. A nice facility. You'll have your books. But you won't have the view, the garden, your son visiting, because I'll explain to him that the facility has better care. And he'll believe me. He always believes me. Then Yoonji's voice. Barely there. Please don't. Sarah. Then don't make me. When the new doctor comes, you'll tell him you've been confused. Forgetting things. Do you understand? Yoonji, yes. Ruth stands in the hallway. Tea tray in her hands. Fingers white around the handles. She walks in normal. Smiling. Sarah straightens. The smile returns, instant. But Ruth has heard. And she begins to watch. Day 12. She finds the first bruise while helping Yoonji change. Inside of the upper arm. Purple. The shape of 3 fingertips. Wheelchair arms don't leave fingerprints. Yoonji pulls away. I'm clumsy. Ruth says, I bathed my grandmother every day for 16 years. I know the difference between a bump and a grab. The gate closes. Yoonji looks away. It's nothing. Day 14. Ruth comes to Yoonji's room after her laundry shift. The wheelchair is facing the wall. Yoonji is sitting in silence, staring at white paint from 6 inches away. She can't turn the chair herself. Her arms aren't strong enough for the weight. How long have you been like this? I don't know. What time is it? 4 o'clock. Since 11. 5 hours. A 71-year-old woman, facing a wall for 5 hours, because someone turned her chair and walked away. Ruth grips the handles, turns the chair back to the window. The afternoon light hits Yoonji's face. She blinks, like coming out of a cave. She said I needed to rest. That the light was bothering my eyes. Ruth says nothing. She adjusts the blanket on Yoonji's lap. Hands her the book from the side table. Opens the curtain wider. The Han River becomes visible. Light pours in. Yoonji reads. Her hands shake on the first page. By the second, they're steady. By the third, the professor's voice is back, reading aloud, the words filling a room that was silent for 5 hours. Ruth stands by the window, listening. Her jaw is so tight it aches. Day 17. Ruth finds Yoonji's glasses hidden in a bureau drawer. Sarah hid them. Yoonji has been sitting in silence for 2 days, unable to read, unable to see the view, unable to be the professor. Just a woman in a blur. Ruth finds the glasses, cleans the lenses with her apron, kneels beside the wheelchair, places them on Yoonji's face, gently, the way she used to put her grandmother's reading glasses on after cleaning them with the hem of her dress. Yoonji's eyes focus. The room sharpens. The bookshelf. The window. Ruth's face. Thank you, Yoonji whispers. Her hands shake. That night, Ruth lies in her small room at the end of the service corridor and stares at the ceiling. She doesn't cry for herself. She cries for the woman down the hall who won't cry for herself. Day 20. For in the afternoon, Ruth is in the corridor when she hears a yelp from Yoonji's room. She opens the door. Sarah is standing over the wheelchair. Yoonji's hand in her lap, red, swelling. Sarah was standing on Yoonji's fingers with her heel. I was just adjusting Mother's blanket. That night, Ruth ices Yoonji's hand. Wraps the finger. She asks, why don't you tell him? She'll put me in a home. She's been telling Jeona for months that I'm confused, forgetting things. She brought a doctor. Told him I'm declining. She's building a case to have me declared incompetent. You're the sharpest person I've ever met. It doesn't matter what I am. It matters what she makes him think I am. She's thought of everything, Ruth. Ruth says, she's not smarter. She's meaner. Those are different things. Day 25. Ruth goes to Jeona. His office, glass walls, a desk the size of her room. She tells him everything. The threats. The hidden glasses. The bruise. The heel on the fingers. He calls Sarah. Sarah arrives. And the performance begins, tears, Instagram photos spread across the table. I love your mother. Why would this woman lie? Jeona goes to Yoonji's room. Ruth follows. Sarah follows. She says, Ruth says Sarah has been hurting you. Is that true? Yoonji's eyes move to Sarah, standing just behind Jeona, face full of love and concern. But Sarah's eyes, locked on Yoonji, say one thing clearly. The home, the facility, alone. No, Yoonji says. The maid is mistaken. Sarah has been very kind to me. Jeona turns to Ruth. His voice is flat. My mother has spoken. If you continue making unfounded accusations, I'll reconsider your position. He leaves. Sarah looks back at Ruth from the doorway. The tears are gone. What's underneath is cold. Ruth stands in Yoonji's room. The old woman stares at her lap. I'm sorry, Ruth. Don't be sorry. Be angry. I'm too tired to be angry. Then I'll be angry for both of us. Ruth sits beside the wheelchair. Takes Yoonji's hand, the one with the swollen finger. Don't leave me alone with her, Yoonji whispers. I'm not going anywhere. The weeks pass. Ruth stays. Braids, reads, cooks, argues, holds. Jeona notices the change, not the abuse. The transformation. He walks past his mother's room one afternoon and hears laughter. He stops. Ruth is braiding Yoonji's hair, both of them arguing at full volume about whether Adichie or a Korean poet is more courageous. His mother is winning. She looks alive. He hasn't heard that sound in 3 years. He watches for 2 minutes. Then walks away. That evening in the kitchen he says, My mother laughed today. Ruth says, she laughs every day. She didn't used to. Then she wasn't given enough reasons. What changed? Ruth turns. I braided her hair. I read her books. I made her jollof rice. I argued with her about poetry. I treated her like a human being, not a patient in a wheelchair. You treat her like a duty. How are you, mother? Fine. That's not a conversation. That's an attendance record. Nobody talks to Kang Juna like this. CEOs don't. Board members don't. His maid just did. She doesn't stop there. She was a professor. She shaped minds. And she has been sitting in that wheelchair for 3 years with no one who treats her like she's still that woman. He says nothing. But that night, he goes to his mother's room. And he sits, not for 10 minutes. For an hour. Meanwhile, Sarah notices the change too. Yunji is stronger. Louder. Dangerous. A strong Yunji might speak. So Sarah escalates. Fires the kind physiotherapist. Replaces him with one who reports to her. Limits Ruth's shifts. Tightens the grip. Month 4. 4:07 in the afternoon. Yunji finds the professor's voice. I will tell my son what you are. He sat with me last week. He listened. He's seeing me again. And when he sees me clearly, he'll see you clearly. Sarah's voice comes back cold and flat. He won't. The sound, sharp, skin on skin. An open hand hitting a 71-year-old woman's face hard enough to knock her glasses across the room. Ruth opens the door. Frame 1. Sarah standing over the wheelchair, hands still raised. Her face showing nothing, the blankness of a woman performing a routine task. Frame 2. Yunji in the wheelchair. Head turned from the impact. Left cheek red. Glasses on the marble floor, the left lens cracked. Her eyes open. Defiant. Frame 3. The glasses on the floor. The things she needs to read. To see. To be herself. Ruth looks at the handprint. She looks at the glasses. She looks at Sarah's blank face. Something detonates. Not anger, exactly. Not even bravery. A reflex. The same reflex that made her lift her grandmother every morning. The same reflex that made her ice Yunji's swollen finger. The reflex of a woman built by her grandmother's village, by 22 years of pushing a wheelchair to church, to stand between the vulnerable and the world. 3 steps. Her right hand. Open palm. Not a fist, a correction. The way women in a Nigerian market hit when someone disrespects their mother. Her palm connects with Sarah's face. Sarah falls sideways. Hits the marble. Hair fans out. Dress crumples. Her hand goes to her cheek. Ruth stands between the wheelchair and the woman on the floor. Her palm stings. Her career is over. Her visa is over. She doesn't care. Don't touch her again. Behind her, in the wheelchair, Yunji looks at Ruth's back with an expression Ruth has never seen from anyone. Someone fought for me. 30 seconds pass. Sarah is on the floor, calculating. Even now, the tears come on schedule. The door opens. Kang Juna walks in. He sees it all. Sarah speaks first, she always does. She hit me out of nowhere. I was visiting your mother. Ruth says nothing. She stands. She waits. Giona turns to his mother. What happened? Yunji's eyes move to Sarah standing behind her son. The eyes that say, the home, the facility. Say what I told you. But something is different today. Today, a woman in a maid's uniform crossed a room and hit the person who hurt her. Not for money. Not for power. Because she has strong hands and her grandmother told her what they're for. Someone fought for me. The gate opens. She slapped me. 2 words. The quietest earthquake in Seoul. Sarah slapped me. Today. And before today. Yunji's voice gets stronger with every sentence. The professor returning. She pinches my arms. She stands on my fingers. She takes my glasses. She turns my chair to face the wall. She whispers that she'll put me in a home. That she'll tell you I'm losing my mind. The room is silent. Then she brought a doctor. Told him I'm confused. She's building a case to have me declared mentally incompetent, because the family trust transfers to you if I'm declared incompetent. She doesn't want me dead. She wants me erased. On paper. Juna looks at Sarah. The tears are still there. But the performance is cracking. Yunji wasn't supposed to speak. In 3 years, she has never spoken. Sarah has no contingency for this. She's confused. Juna. My mother just described a 3-year campaign in precise chronological detail. That is not confusion. That is testimony. He looks at Sarah. Get out. You're choosing a maid over me. I'm choosing my mother. I should have chosen her 3 years ago. Sarah leaves. Heels clicking on marble, getting quieter. Elevator doors. Gone. But not finished. Sarah calls the police at 6:14 that evening. My fiancé's domestic worker assaulted me. Technically true. Ruth did hit her. The law doesn't ask why. Ruth is questioned. Her visa is flagged. Immigration is notified. Sarah leaks the story through a contact. Billionaire's violent African maid attacks fiancé. The comments arrive fast. Deport her. Who does she think she is? The narrative is Sarah's. It always has been. Ruth reads the comments in her small room. Her hands don't shake. Her grandmother heard worse, from neighbors who thought a woman in a wheelchair was a punishment from God. Giona comes to her door. I've hired a lawyer. Because you did what I should have done. I hit your fiancé. You hit the woman torturing my mother. Korean courts might disagree. Korean courts will see the evidence. What evidence? He says, I had cameras installed after the renovation. Every room. They back up to a private server. Sarah didn't know about them. Ruth stares at him. 4 months of footage. She looks at him for a long moment. Why didn't you check when I told you the first time? He has no answer. Because the answer is that he didn't want to see. He says, I'm watching now. It's the quietest thing this loud man has ever said. He watches that night. 6 hours alone in his office, the screen glowing in the dark. He sees Sarah hiding the glasses, methodical, opening the bureau drawer, placing them inside, closing it, walking out, leaving a 71-year-old woman in a blur. He sees her turning the wheelchair to face the wall, Yoonji's hands gripping the armrests, trying to turn herself, too weak, giving up. Sitting for hours. Facing white paint. While the Han River shines behind her. He sees Sarah standing on Yoonji's fingers. The yelp cut short. And the expression on Sarah's face as it happens. Not cruelty, something worse. Boredom. She is bored by the old woman's pain. It is routine. He hears the whispered threats, audio clear enough to catch every word. He'll put you in a home. You'll die alone. He'll believe me. And he watches his mother's face absorb each word. Watches the professor shrink. Watches the compression happen in real time, a woman being made smaller. Visit by visit. Whisper by whisper. And then he sees Ruth. Ruth braiding hair, fingers gentle and patient, the same braids every week, and Yoonji's face changing from compressed to alive as the cornrows take shape. Ruth finding the hidden glasses, cleaning them with her apron, kneeling beside the wheelchair, placing them on Yoonji's face. Ruth turning the wheelchair from the wall back to the window, and the light hitting Yoonji's face, and the old woman blinking like she's coming out of a cave. Ruth cooking jollof rice. The steam rising. Yoonji eating the whole bowl. Ruth holding Yoonji's swollen hand in the dark. Ruth sitting beside the wheelchair at night, not speaking. Just being there. 2 women in the same room across 4 months. One destroying. One rebuilding. He watches today's footage last. Sarah's slap. Glasses flying. Ruth crossing the room. The open palm. Don't touch her again. He watches it 3 times. On the 3rd, he sees something he missed. After the hit, after Sarah falls, Ruth's hand is shaking. Her whole body is shaking. She is terrified. But she doesn't step away from the wheelchair. She plants herself between Yoonji and the woman on the floor. And she does not move. Giona closes the footage. Opens the trust documents. The Kong Family Trust, 51% of Kong Industries, held by Yoonji, transferring to Giona upon her death or legal declaration of incompetence. He pulls Sarah's medical requests. The psychiatric assessment. Pre-filled competency forms. A letter to a residential facility, drafted, addressed, waiting for a signature. Then his head of legal finds something else. A filing from 3 years ago. A preliminary trust transfer was initiated 2 weeks before the car accident, through Yun and Associates, Sarah's family firm. It was withdrawn 10 days after the accident. 2 weeks before the accident, Someone from Sarah's family filed paperwork to seize the trust. Then the accident happened. Yoonji's husband died. Yoonji was paralyzed. The filing was withdrawn because the situation changed. Yoonji was now controllable without a court order. Jeona calls his investigator at 3:47 in the morning. The car accident. My stepfather. Full incident report. Vehicle maintenance records. That case was closed. Open it. The report comes back 2 days later. The brake inspection scheduled for the morning of the accident was cancelled by a phone call from a number registered to Yoon and Associates. The brakes. The filing. The phone call. The timing. Jeona sits with this for a full day. His stepfather, the man who loved his mother, who fixed things around the house and made terrible jokes, died because someone cancelled a brake inspection. He tells Ruth. She goes still. Your mother doesn't know? She's blamed herself for 3 years. She told me she was the one who said they were running late. He didn't call the mechanic because of her. She needs to hear this from you. Not from a lawyer. From her son. They tell Yoonji together. By the window. The view of the Han River. Yoonji listens. The professor's face processing, cataloging, absorbing. The brakes. Someone cancelled the inspection from Sarah's firm. He said they felt wrong that morning. He almost called the mechanic. Her voice drops to a whisper. I told him we were running late. It wasn't your fault. 3 years. I've carried that for 3 years. It wasn't your fault. She doesn't cry. She goes very still. Then the professor's voice returns, clear, absolute. I want her to know that I know. And I want the world to know. All of it. The press conference. Yoonji insists on being there. In her wheelchair. In her braids. Wearing new glasses, Ruth found the identical pair within a day. The Kong Industries press room. Cameras. Reporters. They think they're covering a billionaire addressing a maid scandal. Jeona speaks first. 3 days ago, my domestic worker struck my fiancée. The media reported it as an unprovoked assault. I'm here to show you what actually happened. The screens activate. 4 months of footage. A 12-minute reel. The reporters watch. The room goes silent. Sarah hiding glasses. Turning the wheelchair. Standing on fingers. The gasp in the room is audible. The whispered threats, subtitled on screen. The psychiatric assessment. The competency forms. The letter to the facility. Then Ruth braiding hair. Making jollof rice. Finding glasses. Turning the wheelchair back. Holding hands in the dark. Then Sarah's slap, glasses flying, and Ruth crossing the room. The open palm. Don't touch her again. The room explodes. Cameras flash. Jeona raises his hand. There's more. The trust documents. The filing from 3 years ago. The phone call canceling the brake inspection. The connection to Yoon and Associates. The car accident that killed my stepfather and paralyzed my mother is being reinvestigated. The woman who assaulted my mother, who built a case to have her declared incompetent, whose family firm filed trust documents 2 weeks before a fatal car accident. That woman is Yoon Sarah. And then Yoonji speaks. In her wheelchair. Center stage. Braids. Glasses. Back straight. My name is Kang Yoonji. I taught Korean literature at Fiancée University for 30 years. I am not confused. I am not declining. I am a woman in a wheelchair who was told to be silent or lose everything. Today I choose to speak, because a woman from Nigeria, a maid in my son's house, chose to fight for me when I couldn't fight for myself. She looks across the room. To the side. Gray dress. White apron. Eyes wet. Ruth Okonkwo hit my abuser. And I wish I'd had the legs to stand up and do it myself. The fallout is swift and public. Sarah is investigated, elder abuse, fraud, potential manslaughter. Her brand collapses. Social media goes dark. The comments that once said deport her now say protect Ruth. The charges against Ruth are dropped the same afternoon. 3 weeks later. The penthouse. Morning. Ruth is braiding Yoonji's hair. Same pattern. Same hands. The reading lamp is on. The window faces the garden. The wheelchair is in the light. Never facing the wall again. Yoonji says, you're staying. Not a question. I'm staying. Not as a maid. I'm not sure what else I am. You're my companion. My reader. My hair braider. My jollof rice chef. My friend. If that's not too sentimental for a woman from your part of Lagos. Ruth says, in Ajigunal we're extremely sentimental. We just hide it behind insults. Giona offered Ruth a formal position, full-time caregiver, proper salary, visa sponsorship. She accepted on one condition. I answer to your mother. Not to you. He said, that seems to be how everything works in this house now. She said, smart man. Slow learner. But smart. That evening. Ruth is in the kitchen making jollof rice. The smell fills the corridor. Chef Lim has surrendered the kitchen every Tuesday without protest, a treaty signed in silence. Giona walks in, sits at the counter, watches her cook. You changed everything in this house. I made rice and braided hair. Your mother did the rest. You hit my fiancé. Ex-fiancé. You hit my ex-fiancé for my mother. You almost got deported. You didn't hesitate. I hesitated for 4 months. That's long enough. Silence. He watches her stir the pot. Scotch bonnets bubbling. Smell sharp and alive. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Feel something for someone who works in my house. Without it being wrong. I don't work in your house. I work for your mother. There's a difference. Is there? Your mother thinks so. She told me last week. My son looks at you like he's solving a problem he hopes he never solves. She said that? She's a professor. She notices everything. He reaches across the counter. Not for her hand. For the spoon. Takes a bite of jollof rice directly from the pot. Ruth stares at him. You did not just eat from the pot. I'm earning it differently now. That's not how earning works. Then teach me. She looks at him. He looks at her. The counter between them. The same kitchen where she told him he treats his mother like a duty. The same marble counter, but the distance is different now. Smaller. By choice. Tuesday, she says. What about Tuesday? Come back Tuesday. Sit with your mother for an hour first. Then come here. I'll make extra. Is that a date? It's jollof rice. Don't ruin it. From down the corridor, clear, strong. The voice of a professor who hears everything. I can hear you both. And yes, it's a date. Ruth laughs. Giona almost smiles. The sound of an old woman's voice carrying through a penthouse on the 43rd floor of a Seoul high-rise is the sound of a house becoming a home. Morning. East corridor. Yunji's room. Door open. Reading lamp on. Bookshelf full. Window facing the garden. Yunji in her wheelchair, glasses on, book in her lap, braids in her hair, reading Korean poetry aloud. The professor's voice. Commanding. Unsilenced. Ruth beside her. Not because she understands every word. Because the sound of this woman's voice, strong, unafraid, is the only evidence she needs that what she did was right. On the windowsill, 2 framed photos. Yunji and her late husband. And beside it, Ruth and Yunji, taken by Giona. Neither woman looking at the camera. Both mid-argument. Both right. She came to Seoul with 1 suitcase and a work visa. She took a job because she knew how to care for a woman in a wheelchair. She braided hair. She made jollof rice on Tuesdays. She argued about books with a professor who hadn't argued in 3 years. And when she saw a handprint on that professor's face, she crossed a room and used her strong hands the way her grandmother taught her. Not to hit. To hold someone up. Before you go, sit with this for a moment. Some people wait their entire lives for permission to do the right thing. They wait for the right moment, the right circumstances, the right guarantee that it won't cost them anything. And while they're waiting, the wrong thing keeps happening. Ruth didn't wait. She saw broken glasses on a marble floor. She saw a 71-year-old woman with a handprint on her face. And she moved. 3 steps. An open palm. A maid's uniform. And a woman in a wheelchair who hadn't laughed in 3 years. Laughing every Tuesday now, because someone finally made her jollof rice and stayed to argue about books. Here's what I want you to carry out of this story. The strong hands your grandmother gave you, or your mother, or whoever shaped you into who you are, those hands aren't for yourself. They never were. They're for the person in the room who can't turn their own wheelchair around. Who can't reach their own glasses. who has been facing a wall for 5 hours and is too exhausted to cry about it. You don't have to be a hero. You just have to be the person who stays, who shows up, who says, clearly and without drama, "Don't touch her again." That's enough. That's more than enough. If this story hit you somewhere real, share it with someone who needs it today. Not because it'll help an algorithm, because someone in your life is facing a wall right now, and they need to know that somebody sees them. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one. New ones drop every week. And I'll tell you right now, what's coming next will stay with you just as long. See you there.